Order today.
Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I'm thrilled to be joined by a returning guest, Dr. Mitch Weisberg, the Chief Medical Officer of ViMedicus, as well as Cate Brady, the Vice President of Business Development for ViMedicus. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Cate, ViMedicus, you're working hard at shaking up the experience for both consumers and for providers and for employers in the healthcare space. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing and I guess why it's making such an impact. Let's start on the patient side.
Well, we improve the health of individuals who have multiple chronic conditions, and we do this through behavioral change that's brought about with licensed clinical social workers. So it's not just an app.
It's fascinating, and for so long, the process has been just the process, and the system is the system, and people are expected to go through the same process of a primary care physician, and they don't have that. You just described it as a guide, that licensed clinical social worker. Dr. Weisberg, tell us why on the provider side this approach is so unique and frankly, a better process.
Thank you, Shalom. So when I'm talking to providers, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to us because I am one of them,
yes.
And have been for 27 years. And I know, so I think I pretty much know what we have a pretty collective experience. And I think that is one of where we do our bread and butter, if you will, are exactly these patients, those that have multiple chronic conditions simultaneously. And I could tell you that and I'm sure my colleagues are in the same position. Yes, I do have a personal relationship with each of my patients. I think I love most of them, and most of them love me and all that, but that's just not enough to help them be well, right? We really need to focus all our time with the patient on really managing the nuts and bolts of these chronic conditions, and sort of the well-being might, not get into the equation. And so what I love about ViMedicus, why I became the chief medical officer, is because it offers something for us to send our patients to know that they're going to get that personalized attention, because their problems with well-being might be something like they can't manage technology. And the ViCare program and the licensed clinical social worker will help them get better at technology and overcome that stress.
So, Mitch, you mentioned that you've been in medicine for 27 years, which means that you started at age 5. We'll perhaps cover that later in the program. But in all of that time, and long before that too, as I mentioned, the system hasn't changed. You mentioned time, and you mentioned relationships with patients. The reality is that the time has been limited forever, that
yes.
Folks have appointments and doctors are triple booked, and they're always taking a reactive approach as opposed to a proactive approach. Yes. Why wasn't ViMedicus around sooner? And tell us the story of why this approach is working.
Thank you. And I think about this exact question continuously. And that's why it was when I was first introduced to ViMedicus, it clicked, because it was something that I had already envisioned that I did not know already existed. So, it's really, in my analysis, it's not the system, and it's not and it's not us, and it's not the patients. It's simply the nature of what we do. We're science. We're scientists. We understand our patients at a molecular level, and that's complicated. It takes a lot of time. But so that this whole thing about wellness really is not something we have the time or resource to also do.
So, Cate, on the employer side, which is a all-important issue over here, because often employers are are the ones carefully watching over their costs. Employers have been frustrated with a lack of options and very limited solutions. Tell us a little bit about the conversations that you and your colleagues of ViMedicus have been having with employers and why they have been so excited and, frankly, quite animated about the new solutions that are being provided to them that Mitch was just talking a little bit about.
Sure. First of all, employers are really working hard to control their healthcare spend, but they don't always know where that big spend is coming from. And so one of the first things that we do is we analyze their healthcare spend, and we find that small percentage of their employee population who are the most expensive. And we then provide them with a solution that will actually not just control costs, but will give them a positive ROI by the end of 12 to 18 months.
Interesting. And you have described in the past that the key differentiator is that licensed clinical social worker. And as I mentioned earlier, you described them as the guide. What is the first step in the process? What sort of assessment is taking place for the individuals that are being brought into the ViMedicus solution?
What we do, first of all, obviously, is we find them, and then we have the individual recommended the program by their own primary care physician, so that we are working side by side with their primary care doctor. And once they sign into our program, we do an initial health assessment so that we get an understanding of not just their health, but really their well-being and the sense, and to find out how much control they feel that they have over their life and over their health. And
talk to us briefly about the technology behind the platform. How is the technology improving the experience in a way that perhaps has not existed in the past?
Sure. The technology is really an amplifier for our licensed clinical social worker. It also collects data about the life of the individual who is enrolled in our program. Our technology platform also delivers information to the employee about their conditions to help them learn more about it in a very simple way that's available 24/7. And then that way they're starting to get not just a sense of control through their licensed clinical social worker interaction, but also through the fact that they're learning more about their condition, and we're helping them walk their journey to better health.
Fascinating. And Mitch, I know you are a quick judge of people in general, and again, that's for a whole nother conversation. But you have focused because of your practice over the past 27 years or so. You have been able to spend the time with people in a way that most physicians have not been able to, and you have discovered and I guess the lack of productivity by some employees that are dealing with multiple conditions. Have you found through the ViMedicus solution an improvement in sort of that experience?
Absolutely. It's to respond kind of to your statement about a quick judge, and to give more to that is because I agree with you. I am. That's my professionally. I am because I do in my practice what we do at ViMedicus with an individual. We could do it pretty efficiently by personalizing the care, being more of a support than a director of the care. So, for instance, in ViCare, we ask three important questions. First thing we're going to do when we get a new enrollee is we're going to ask them, how well do you feel? Or how unwell do you feel? Why? What's the reasons? And we don't tell them why. We ask why, what their perception as to why, and then, most importantly, what do you want to do about it?
and that proactive approach is the ViMedicus difference. Mitch and Cate, thank you so much. We'll definitely continue the conversation, but that's all we have time for today. Again, Cate Brady, Vice President of Business Development for ViMedicus, and Dr. Mitch Weisberg, Chief Medical Officer. Thank you so much for joining us. I know our listeners can learn more at vicarehealth.com, but we're going to continue the conversation about healthcare with Dr. Fred Jacobs, who's going to talk about foreign-trained doctors outperforming U.S. graduates. We'll be right back.
Not a day goes by